What's up, family? It is Caden with Urban Finance. I am excited for my conversation today. I have a special guest with us, Tisha McMillan. She is the CEO of the HELP, which stands for Higher Education Literacy Provider. We're going to talk about how to get your student loans forgiven or reduced, or anything else that might help you to get rid of these pesky student loans. The student debt crisis is currently sitting at $1.8 trillion. There are many individuals, students, recent grads, and parents who took out Parent Plus loans that are going to have to, honestly, many of them plan to die with those loans because that's literally the only way they can get rid of it, or at least some of them feel that's the only way that they can get rid of it. We know some parents have upwards of $500,000 in Parent Plus loans because it is very easy to take out these loans. But, you know, a lot of companies that lend it sometimes don't even pay any regard to if someone can actually afford to pay it back. And so I commonly think of that as predatory lending, but hey, it is what it is, I guess. In a capitalist society that we're living in. So that's why I think it's a great thing that we're having a conversation about getting student loans forgiven. So, without saying anything else, as I always say, go ahead and smash the like button. That truly helps out the channel, the YouTube algorithm. Say hi in the comment section so that you know that you're watching us live. And while you're doing that, hey, what's up, Wayne? Good to see you. Good to see you, my brother. And what's up, Florence? Come as young. Good to see you. And so, say what's up to our guest as she joins us, Tisha McMillan.
Hello.
So, Tisha, can you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Tisha McMillan, and I am the CEO of the HELP. The HELP is stands for the Higher Education Literacy Provider. I provide higher education literacy to federal loan borrowers as it relates to FAFSA, student loan repayment, cancellation, discharge, forgiveness, and default. So what I do is I do my due diligence to make sure that my information is accurate, and I dispense that information in the community. I host financial literacy events working specifically with first generation students. And I just try to provide the information needed to go through the process. First generation students don't really know the process, and there's lots of misconceptions about financial aid, and there's lots of myths about how it actually works. So my job is to tell you what's real and what's not, and to help borrowers become better stewards of the monies that they borrow.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. And
Mhm.
to those that are watching us live, if you have any questions at all for Tisha, certainly let us know. Certainly drop it in the comment section, and I will take the time to read it. And before we get into really talking about how to get the student loans forgiven for those that have student loans or get student loans reduced, I just have a general question that I ask probably a good percentage of my guests that come onto this show. Do you think that college today is still worth it, given, I guess, how much we have to pay for it?
I think that college is beneficial, but I also believe that it's not the only route that a student has to be successful. I think in our community, we have to stop pushing students to go to college because we feel like that's where they need to be. The truth is, not everybody wants a 4-year degree. And when you push a student who doesn't want a 4-year degree into school, then they're not going to matriculate, but they are going to leave with student loan debt that they're going to be saddled with until they die or pay it off. I think we need to start looking at community colleges. We need to start looking at trades and certifications and apprenticeships. There's lots of things that we can do, but you don't need college to be successful. It is a business. I know a lot of people who are blue collar workers who are very successful. So I don't think it's the only route a student has to take. And I think when students are taking that route, it's very important that it's what they want to do and not what the parent wants them to do.
I love that answer. I love that answer because I'm someone that also I truly believe in higher education. I truly believe it is one of the most important pathways to success in a general sense. But I also think that, a lot of parents push children who are not enthusiastic, aren't necessarily prepared by their high school for college. and it's a just get a degree mentality when not every degree actually pays you um, what you need to be paid to pay back those student loans. And so trades and things, those are things that we really need to
Mhm.
consider. And so kind of getting into Biden's policy, because a lot of people voted for Biden. To be honest, a lot of students voted for Biden under the assumption that he will pay forgive some of his student debt. So, can you tell us a little bit of like anything regarding Biden's policy as it relates to student loan forgiveness that people should be aware of?
So I was one of those people, and I truly thought, when Biden said he was going to do 10,000, I was like, okay, he's the man. And then all of a sudden, then it went to 50, and I'm like, oh, he's really the man. Okay, 50. And then Biden got quiet. We ain't hear nothing about
Mm,
10, and we ain't hear nothing about 50. So
mm,
at this point, his forgiveness plan is a huge question mark. But what a
mm,
lot of people need to understand is that when President Biden was talking about student loan forgiveness, it wasn't every loan borrower. So every loan borrower, even if President Biden decides to do student loan forgiveness, is not going to be eligible because he's talking about federal direct loans. These are loans
mm,
held specifically with the Department of Education. Some of
mm,
us have been in repayment for a very long time, and we have some old debt. And our loans are not federal direct loans; they are FAIL loans, and FAIL stands for Federal Family Education Loan Program loans, and it's
mm,
FFELP. Those loans are private federal loans, but they're held by the servicer who issued them. The Department of Education just guarantees them. So servicers like Sally Mae and Navient and Nelnet, they made those loans. So those are their loans. They're the holders. President Biden isn't forgiving those loans. What he's saying is the direct loans held by the Department of Education. So even if it does come to fruition that he's going to forgive some loans, it won't apply to everyone.
Hmm. That's so important to know because people will sit back sometimes and wait for the loans to be forgiven, not even doing sometimes the due diligence to see if
Mhm.
it would actually apply to those loans,
Correct.
their loans. So I think that that's a super important piece. And so
Mhm.
if someone does think that they can get their student loans forgiven or want to get their student loans forgiven, what are some ways that someone can currently go about getting their loans forgiven?
So a lot of people either believe student loan forgiveness is not real or they believe that it's instantaneous. So it is not
Mm,
instantaneous. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that you're going to apply for today and get tomorrow. The only forgiveness that is immediate is forgiveness with God. Student loan forgiveness takes time. So it's a
glory,
process.
glory.
Yeah, so it's a process. So currently there are three different student loan forgiveness plans available. And I'll just start with teacher loan forgiveness, which is forgiveness for teachers who teach in a Title I school.
Mm,
If you're just a regular teacher, then you're eligible for $5,000 in student loan forgiveness. If you're highly qualified and you teach in the fields of science, mathematics, or special education, then you qualify for up to 17,500. Then you have these income-driven repayment plans. A lot of people are in income-driven repayment plans, but they don't realize that those are also forgiveness plans too. You just have to
mm,
stay in those plans for 20 or 25 years, and it depends on the age of your loans. When your loans first went into repayment, then after 20 or 25 years of repayment in that income-driven repayment plan, your remaining balance will be forgiven. And then the big one that has everyone like all flustered and everybody wants, of course, is public service loan forgiveness.
mm.
Public service loan forgiveness is 10 years. After 10 years of payments under an income driven repayment plan and working in a nonprofit or government agency, then whatever your remaining balance is can be forgiven and it's not taxable. So it's important to
Mm,
know that. So for income driven repayment plans, whatever amount is forgiven, that amount will have to be claimed as income on your taxes if you have
mm,
forgiveness after 2025. But currently there is a stipulation that President Biden did that said anyone who qualified for forgiveness prior to that date, they wouldn't have to claim that as income on their taxes.
mm.
But
And
public
so
service loan forgiveness is the key. Everybody wants public service loan forgiveness.
And so for the income base, the entirety. So if you have $50,000 forgiven on that year, you'll have to, in that time period, you'll have to pay the whole $50,000 worth of taxes. Um,
Whatever the remaining balance is, you're going to you're going to claim it as income on your taxes.
mm,
And so it just depends. A lot of times with income driven repayment plan, after 20 or 25 years, depending on how much your payments are being calculated at, you probably wouldn't have a balance that high unless you
Mm.
have some huge student loan debt. Most people
Yeah.
I know have 6+ figures in student loan debt.
Yeah, Bernie said up to 25 years. That's too long. Yeah, no, for income-based forgiveness plans, it is
Mhm.
a very long plan, a very
But the
long time.
goal,
And so,
correct.
so I guess
But
a
the goal,
question, and I know you was going to say something, but a quick question. So for income-based, does that apply to lenders like Navient in them as well as federal, or is it just federal?
so federal, so the income driven repayment plans, and there's four of them. There's income based repayment, which is IBR. There's income contingent repayment, which is ICR, and then there's repay and repayee, which is just a revised version of the form of the first plan. So
Hmm.
all of those are income driven repayment plans. If you are a federal direct borrower, you have access to all four of those plans.
Hmm.
If you are a borrower who has failed loans are only eligible for IBR, the income based repayment. They all
Hmm.
pretty much do the same thing, but they calculate payments differently. If you are a borrower who only has failed loans and you want access to those other income driven repayment plans, then you would need to consolidate your loans to turn your failed loans into federal direct loans.
Hmm. Oh, and I didn't even know you can do that. So what's the process to turn, and I don't even know the term, the FEL
Mhm.
loans, I think that's what
Mhm.
it sounds like,
Yes.
to, I guess, federal direct loans.
Mhm.
What's the
You would just
process
need,
for that?
yes, you would just need to submit a consolidation application, complete a consolidation application, and you have the choice of either staying with your servicer or picking a new servicer to become your new servicer. And
Hmm.
once you fill out the application, it takes 30 to 45 days to process, maybe 60, and then your loans are consolidated. The good thing about consolidation is that it helps clean up your loans because when
Hmm.
student loans are initially awarded, they're awarded individually. So every student for every year that they're in school, they're given four individual loans.
Oh.
So if a student is finished school in 4 years, they get 16 loans. 16
Hmm.
loans are reporting to the credit bureau every month, and they're reporting
Hmm.
individually. So as soon as that loan is late or a payment is late, then that's 16 times the servicer is reporting that that loan is late to all three of the
Hmm.
credit bureaus. So what consolidation is going to do is it's going to take all of those 16 loans and combine them into one loan. Technically, it is two loans because you can't combine a subsidized loan with the unsubsidized loan because the government pays the interest on the subsidized loan. But
Hmm.
when the loan is reported to the credit bureau, it is reported as one loan.
Hmm. That I'll say dropping facts and knowledge. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. So Hanson has a question. Do they have specific types of nonprofits, or do they have to be specific type of nonprofits? And I'm assuming that's for the
Public service loan forgiveness.
yes.
No, it does not have to be a specific type. It just has the business just has to be registered as a nonprofit. So what happened is if you're interested in public service loan forgiveness, you're going to complete the ECF form, the PSLF ECF form. That stands for Public Service Loan Forgiveness Employment Certification Form. You're going to fill out the first page, and your employer is going to fill out the second page to certify that they are a nonprofit or a government agency because you have to show that you work for a qualifying employer. And once you submit that, you're going to fill it out and you're going to send that to Fed Loan Servicing because for the time being, they are still handling public service loan forgiveness.
Mhm.
And then they're going to research your employer to make sure they qualify. And once they say, okay, yes, this is a qualified employer, and then public service loan for, Fed loans is going to take your loan from whoever your servicer is. Let's say it's Navient. It's going to transfer from Navient system to their system, and they're going to become your new loan servicer. And then you're just going to start making payments to them. And every year you're going to submit the ECF form. You
Mm.
do that so that you can track how many payments you're making under public service loan forgiveness, and to make sure that you have it's your receipt to show I'm at 50 qualifying payments. Every year you're sending it, and
Mm.
then you're actually going to be able to see how many qualified payments you make. And then after your 120th payment, after your 10 years, then you are going to have your loans forgiven. But also make sure that you have to qualify for an income driven repayment plan. That's
Mm.
the key part. If you do not qualify for an income driven repayment plan, any of them, then you're not going to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness because the goal of forgiveness is to have a balance remaining. They ask you to be in an income driven repayment plan because the standard student loan repayment is 10 years. So everybody gets the same
Mm.
10-year repayment. It doesn't matter if you borrow 50,000 or 100,000. Everybody gets the same 10 years, 120 payments. And under public service loan forgiveness, if you paid your loan the regular payment for the next 10 years, by your 120th payment, you are not going to have a balance that's going to be forgiven. That's why they ask you to be in an income driven repayment plan, because the goal is to make the lowest payment possible so that you can have the max forgiveness allowable. That's a big thing that people do in these income driven repayment plans. They get nervous because the interest is capping or is growing and the loan balance isn't going down. That's the point. It's forgiveness. So either you're going to pay your loan or you're going to have the government pay the loan after 20 or 25 years if you're in the plan. So for those of you in an income driven repayment plan, if your servicer calculates your payment at $25, pay the $25. Don't
Yeah.
overpay. Use that money to pay other consumer debt. Let the process happen. You can't get nervous that the balance is growing because you're not paying the standard amount. The only way you're going to see your balance go down under a for your student loans is if you're in the standard repayment plan. If you're not in a standard repayment plan, then you're just in a plan that's keeping you from defaulting. You're making the lowest payment possible to either get forgiveness or to keep from defaulting. But that's the process. So don't try to pay it out because you cheat yourself out of forgiveness.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing that. I'll say it again. If you have any questions at all, while she is here dropping knowledge, make sure you ask them in the comment section, and I'll surely let Tisha know. And so Hanson does have another question, and I'm not sure.
It
It said,
doesn't. I see it.
okay, does it
Yes, it
have to
doesn't
be
have to be.
10-year
You
at the
could have
same
worked.
nonprofit?
No, it doesn't matter if you worked at a nonprofit, then you went to a private or a public, and then you went back. No, it's as long as you have those ECF forms, which is you're tracking your service. That is how they're going to calculate it. So it doesn't have to be 10 years in the same nonprofit because people leave jobs all the time. You could have been at one nonprofit and then went to another one. Both periods of employment would count.
Awesome, awesome. And so, do Parent Plus loans qualify for both the public service loan forgiveness? I'm assuming not, and the other loan forgiveness. Do Parent Plus
So
loans qualify for any
interesting.
type of loan forgiveness?
Most people would say no, but actually, Parent Plus loans qualify for one type, and that is income contingent repayment, an
Mm,
ICR. That's an income driven repayment plan. So, a Parent Plus borrower who is having difficulty managing their loans or they need to get their payment lower, they could qualify for ICR if they calculate a payment. So, how the income driven repayment plans work is that you get a payment that's based off of your income and your family size. So,
mhm,
that payment is called a partial financial hardship payment. It's called PFH, and it's a very low payment. So you get that payment for 12 months, and then every 12 months you recertify to get a new lower payment. In the year that you do not certify, or that you don't calculate that lower amount, it goes to the higher payment amount.
mhm,
So Parent Plus loans do qualify for ICR, and I do believe they do qualify for public service loan forgiveness. I think it's
mm.
just a matter of having to go through the process.
Okay. And so, for anyone, if someone defaults on their loans while they are in an income-based driven repayment program, trying to get it forgiven, or public service loan forgiveness program, trying to give it forgiven, if they default on a loan, does that take away from their ability to get it forgiven, or does that time where they're in default just not count? Can you speak to that
Yes.
situation?
So let me tell you this. So student loans, so a student loan goes into default at 270 days past due. That doesn't mean that it defaulted. That just means that it's in a default status because you're just not making payments. And before it goes to that point, the servicer is calling, they're sending mail, they're calling your references, they're calling your neighbors, they're skip tracing. Trust me, I know I did collection, so I know what we do. So we're doing all these things trying to find you. And when at 270 days past due, when we have not been able to get you to make any arrangement, we stop. We box up the loan, kind of, sort of, and we send it to the guarantee agency. It sits at the guarantee agency, and they'll do a couple calls. They're not as aggressive as we are as a servicer because at the end of the day, they know they're going to get their money. So
Mhm,
they're calling, they're trying to get you to make an arrangement, and you don't make an arrangement. At 330 days past due, a student loan defaults. That means the guarantee agency, the Department of Ed, sends your servicer a check and buys the loan, and then they send it to their collection agency. And their
mhm,
collection agency isn't like the cell phone companies and things. They're not calling you talking about come and pay this money. So as this loan is sitting in collections with the collection agency, they're adding interest, fees, collection costs, attorney costs, everything associated with trying to get you to do something with this loan. It's just sitting every day. It's sitting in default. It's gaining interest and fees, and then all of a sudden, and people forget about it. They go on with their life, ain't never heard nothing else about it. And then all of a sudden, somebody wants to buy a house. They get approved for this federal home loan. And at the moment of closing, and I'm telling you from facts, from what I know, because I work with a lot of people in different industries, they're days before closing, and somehow their lender runs cavers in the system that the federal government uses to track all the people who owe them federal money.
Yeah.
And days before closing, that cavers report comes back and says, they defaulted on a student loan. There's no buying a house today. And until they settle that default, they won't get their loan. So people totally forget about it. And the government is not aggressive about collections, because I tell people all the time, there's various repayment options, but there's only two repayment methods. You either pay voluntarily, or you're going to pay involuntarily through default. And when it defaults, they're going to garnish your wages. They're going to take your taxes. And if you filed married filing joint, they're taking her taxes too, or his taxes too. They're going to place liens against your property. In 19 states, they will pull your professional license. A lot of people don't know that. But when your loan is in default, you lose all your entitlements and benefits. So there is no forgiveness. There is nothing. You don't get access to deferment, forbearance. There's no forgiveness. You are in default, and you don't qualify for anything until you make an arrangement to get out of default with the collection agency.
Yeah. Back in the day, they say, "Oh, they grimy." That that is crazy. And and like you said, a lot of people won't know about it until they're making some important life decisions.
Totally forgot about loans.
Bernie has a question. Can you repeat the information about loan forgiveness for special education?
So that is teacher loan forgiveness. So if you teach at a Title I school and you teach for 5 consecutive years, you would be eligible for teacher loan forgiveness. And the amounts vary based off of what subjects you teach. So if you teach in the fields of science, special education, or mathematics, then you would qualify for up to $17,500 in loan forgiveness. And you would just ask your servicer for information about teacher loan forgiveness.
So if you get the teacher loan forgiveness, can you, after you get that, then do public service loan forgiveness, or is it just one or the other?
Question. Yes, you can actually, but you cannot use those same years that qualified you for teacher loan forgiveness to get it. So if teacher loan forgiveness says after 5 consecutive years you qualify, and so you teach for 5 consecutive years and you got your 17,500 or your 5,000, you have to begin a whole nother 10 years to get your public service loan forgiveness. They cannot intertwine. So it has to be 2 different periods of service. But yes, you could have both.
Okay. So someone would have to look at their specific situation and see, does it make sense to get the teacher and the public service loan forgiveness, or just do the public service loan forgiveness?
It would make sense depending on your loan balance. If you're a person who does not have a high balance, but you are a teacher, you would probably be better off with the teacher loan forgiveness, because keep in mind, teacher loan forgiveness, you don't have to be in an income-driven repayment plan. So if your payment doesn't calculate under an income-driven repayment plan, then you're not eligible for public service loan forgiveness. But if you're a teacher, then you can probably do teacher loan forgiveness.
Okay. And I think I already know the answer to this, or at least part of it. So my first question was going to be like, who do you recommend is there anyone you would recommend not, I guess, consider getting their loans forgiven?
It's not, honestly, it's an individual thing. It's a process. You just have to be patient, and it's not going to be immediate. And it's important to understand how forgiveness works, because there are lots of companies out there, and they're called third-party documentation preparation services. And these are the people who call you up and say, hey, you qualify for forgiveness. I know you have student loans, and all you got to do is fill out this paper, or they're sending you stuff in the mail that says you've been selected. And if you don't know who your loan servicer is, and you don't know how it works, then what you're going to do is you're going to fill out this paper, and you're going to give these people your information. You're even going to send them a check because you think it's your loan service, and you're going to have them drafting money out of your account. And it's not going to be until after you've paid them so much money that you realize this is not a legitimate company. So you have to be very careful. I tell people all the time, if you hear something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But if you hear something that sounds like something you're interested in, then call your servicer. But don't just give random companies your information because they know you have student loans. Lots of people have student loans. They're just fishing. They're fishing for information. And I get lots of times I get people emailing me, and they've been paying some third-party company money, and it hasn't even gone to their service. I had a lady who actually called me, and she had been paying for the last 2 years as the payments was suspended during the moratorium. But she had
Mm,
been paying this company, and they've been drafting out of her account for the last 2 years, and they never sent the money to the her servicer, and she had to end up closing out her account because they had her information. So you just got to be careful who you give your information to.
yeah, no, it's crazy, and people will be surprised at the amount of people that
Mm-hmm.
fall for this type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we talked about student loan forgiveness. What are some other ways I guess people can finance a college education, or that you would recommend people look into when trying to, I guess, pay for college?
For me, and I'll tell you how my journey went. I went to community college and I paid out of pocket. Community
Hmm.
college is cheaper. The cost of a
Yeah.
class at a community college, compared to a university, you can pay that out of pocket. You can actually, if you qualify for need-based aid, complete a FAFSA, use your free money to pay for your classes at your community college, not even touch your loan money yet, and just do
Hmm.
your first 2 years and take care of your general courses. Then transfer into a university and then start taking on loans. That's what I did.
Mm.
It's easy to not have to. It's well, it's not easy. It's kind of difficult to go to college and not take on student debt just because the price of college now is so different. We're
Yeah.
talking about it's the amounts that people pay, and it's just crazy. So if you're not a high academic, a student with a high GPA, it's going to be real difficult for you to get some scholarships and some need based money. I
Mm.
always tell people, we have to stop overlooking community colleges. And I think that the issue is that people make students feel like if they went to a community college, it's not a real school. It is a real school. It's
Yeah.
the same courses. So we have to stop that in the mentality like a student has failed if they didn't go to a university. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how you started. The goal is just to finish.
Yeah, no, and the goal now is to finish with as least amount of
Yes.
student debt as possible.
Hmm.
And if doing 2 years in a honestly community college would do that, I think it's
Hmm.
a smart idea. And so, I mean, I'll say for my undergrad degree, it was a similar process.
Hmm.
I went to City University, CUNY, and to be quite frank about it, I paid nothing out of pocket based on various need based services, and I would say grants awarded to me, or also scholarships, I guess. But yeah, and so looking into these different options, going to local schools,
Hmm.
I think there was a time where a lot of parents paid for their children to go away for the experience based on how
Hmm.
much college is cost. I don't think the experience, we can't, well, I'm not telling people what to do, but as for me and my household, the experience won't be the driving factor. I think, we need
Hmm.
to really consider the degrees that our children are getting, and how much they're paying to get those degrees, and how much they could potentially make coming out of college. And I always say, like, I never knock the previous generation for any of the decisions they make, because each generation is building on the past one. They may not have anyone that went to college to say, okay, this arts degree, unless you're connected, might not be worth much. Don't pay $100,000 for that. And so I think
Hmm.
as we learn, we need to make better decisions. And
Correct.
so I think we're in an information age. There's a lot of information out there. There are people like you that
Hmm.
specialize and know this information like the back of their hands. And so I do think we need to be seeking out these resources when we're making decisions on what school we should go to, or what school our children should go to, and even the type of loans that we're taking out. Can you, I'm not sure if you're able to speak on this, but can you talk about like the difference in the interest rates or potentially cost of various loans?
So I would say when students complete FAFSA, and FAFSA gives the student financial aid. Financial aid includes student loans, Pell and Pell Grant, and work study if eligible. A lot of times people forget about the loan portion in financial aid because I think the aid part throws them off. But student loans are a part of financial aid, and and those loans are held by the Department of Education. They don't have an outrageous interest rate. It's not a horrible rate. The rates change every year. I think the issue is that sometimes students there's just not enough money from FAFSA in order to pay the bill.
Hmm.
So then you have a student who probably has a need of maybe 10 or 15,000. Then we're
Hmm.
going to the parent and we're saying, parent, what are you able to do? Parent applies for the Parent Plus loan. And as you stated earlier, the Parent Plus loan and these student loans, they're not loans in a sense that you have to qualify for it. You kind of do, but you kind of don't, because the
Mhm.
government's just giving these loans through
Yeah,
FAFSA.
yeah.
And then with the parent loan, it's easier for a parent to get a Parent Plus loan than it is for them to get a private loan. Granted, private loans are going to give you lower interest rates, but I tell everyone I'm anti-private loan for lots of reasons. And the biggest one is the fact that you don't have any repayment options. And repayment
Hmm.
options don't seem important in the beginning when you feel like you're getting this great rate, but we're all like one health crisis away, one job crisis away from changing our whole livelihood. And then you're stuck with
Hmm.
this private loan and you can't get the payment lower unless you refinance. And if you don't qualify to refinance, then you're stuck with what that payment is. So when you're comparing the lower interest rates of a private loan to a federal loan that's probably has a higher interest rate, you have to think about all of the different repayment options that you get when it comes to that, because you have those options of deferment, forbearance, forgiveness, cancellation, discharge. You have all of that.
Let you. Hi. You want to introduce himself?
Um,
You can introduce
so
himself.
this is my son Carter, who wasn't supposed to be bothering right
What's
now.
up, Carter? How you doing?
Hi. You say hi? Okay, go focus. What do you want?
He bless you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. My son usually crashes all of my lives, but I think my wife is putting him to bed right now. Hey, Carter.
Okay.
Okay,
Lord Jesus.
can you just tell us, like, how did you become so passionate about what you're doing right now and why you do what you do?
I spent 15 years working with a loan servicer. I acquired a lot of knowledge, and then I started working at HBCU, and I saw a huge disconnect. I saw a disconnect from students who were leaving high school and they were coming to college, and there's no process in between that guides them on what it is
Mm.
that they're actually doing. We're rushing them through these schools. We're like, see this, isn't this great sign here? Do this. And the next thing you know, and they graduate and they're like, I don't have student loans. I say, how did you pay for college? They say, I got financial aid. And so
Mm.
I'm like, that's part of it is student loans. I'm sorry. Go sit down. Go sit down. Give me a minute. And so I decided that that's when I was going to start doing the help. And the help is me just helping students, especially first generation who don't have any other resources and don't understand the process, to be able to help them go through the process and teach them things that they don't know, because there's lots of misconceptions about federal student aid. Lots of times people still think that if you die, your student loans get passed down to your kids. Like it's like
Mm.
generational wealth. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
does,
yeah.
it
Nah.
goes away.
It goes away. And so,
Yes.
as we wrap up, how can folks best support you or find out about what you do?
So I have a page on Facebook that I call The Help, the Higher Education Literacy Provider. And what I try to do is provide updated information pertaining to everything going on with higher education. I post everything that you read about, that you may have heard about, anything that you see in the news that pertains to higher education. I try to break it down into bite-sized pieces and just keep everybody updated and informed. I think when you do your due diligence and you understand how things work, then that's the best way to not get scammed, not to be taken
Mm.
advantage of. And you just have to know certain things. On my page, you can actually even schedule a free consultation with me. I'm pretty good about returning those calls just to discuss your situation. I think it's important for people in the community who have the knowledge and the gifts to share it with those in the community who need it the most, because that's how we're going to make the community better, by
Mm.
sharing the gifts and just sharing the knowledge. Literacy is power. And the more the better you're going to be, and you're not going to be taken advantage of.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Tisha. I learned so much, and I think this conversation here is going to bless a lot of people. Those that have student loans, those that may have children that are going to college or in college, because there's so much we really do not know about the process and our
Mm-hmm.
learning. And so, I'll definitely get your information from you. So certainly send me any details in terms of how people can contact you, and I'll make sure and put it in the description, because I think this is something that can save people a whole lot of money or a whole lot of headache down the line,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, when it's time to buy a home and things like that, and they're not thinking
Mm-hmm.
of it. So thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that joined us live. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Hanson. Thank you, Wayne and Vern and Florence. I saw Siobhan. I liked the video. So thank you so much for everyone that joined us, participate in the comment section. I'll say if you have comments even after the video it ends, feel free to still throw them in the comment section and we'll see what we can do. All right, family. God bless you. And as I always say, remember to live your best life.
Thank you.